Hello there, my name's Hido, and welcome to the Pantheon, where today we're going to cook up a brand new meal from Commander 2021, and hopefully it'll be delicious. Gyome Master Chef is a 4-mana card, and for the amount of effort and work he's put in, he's trained in culinary school, he's gone to France, he's learnt with the Grandmasters. I think that's more than worth it. But let's have a look at his abilities. He has Trample, which for a Troll Warlock is pretty fitting. And at the beginning of your end step, create a number of food tokens equal to the number of non-token creatures you had enter the battlefield under your control this turn. And you can pay 1, sacrifice food, target creature gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it. And finally, he's a 5/3, which is quite an aggressive stat line, to be honest. I quite like it, especially with Trample. Can really get some nice damage in there. So, what are we going to do with him? Well, he makes a ton of artifacts, and I think that's the key to this card, really. In at number 5, we have Last Laugh, which is a card I'd never really seen, but it's a 4-mana enchantment. Whenever a permanent other than Last Laugh is put into a graveyard from play, Last Laugh deals 1 damage to each creature and each player. When no creature in play, sacrifice Last Laugh. Why is this good? Well, all of our tokens, we can sacrifice the foods for certain different things. Our commander's ability allows us to sacrifice 1 to give target creature indestructible and tap it. Well, if we're going to sacrifice all of them, we can give all of our team indestructible, and then all of our team won't die. Our opponents will. That's pretty goddamn good. But there's a couple of other uses that we could have for the tokens, and ways that we can kill them all at once, so Last Laugh will deal a ton of damage. Rampage of the Clans is a 4-mana instant. Destroy all artifacts and enchantments. For each permanent destroyed this way, its controller creates a 3/3 green centaur creature token. Well, that's going to be pretty damn good for us because all of these food tokens, they're not really that useful, and we could do with a lot of 3/3s. Whereas all of our opponents, they're going to really they'll be playing artifacts and enchantments that they care about. So, excellent card for us. Then, these last 2 cards here, Reprocess and God Eternal Bontu, are very similar. God Eternal Bontu is a 5-mana 5/6 with Menace. When he enters the battlefield, sacrifice any number of other permanents and draw that many cards. So, and Reprocess is the same. 4-mana sorcery, sacrifice any number of artifacts, creatures, and or lands. Draw a card for each permanent sacrifice this way. If we have a ton of tokens, we're not really doing anything with them. Sacrifice them, draw loads of cards. It's just going to generate a ton of value for us. Which brings me on to Underhanded Designs. A 2-mana enchantment. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. And then pay 2, sacrifice Underhand Designs, destroy a target creature, activate this only if you have 2 or more artifacts. So the basis of this deck is that artifacts are constantly, at the end of our turn, going to be coming in. So if we have a ton of mana left over, we can pay 1 multiple times for each one of those, slowly drain our opponents to death. Keskit, the Flesh Sculptor, is a 3-mana 1/3, and you can tap him, sacrifice 3 other artifacts and creatures. Or creatures. You choose. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put 2 of them into your hand, and the other into your graveyard. Really great value. He really uses those food tokens for something beneficial. And if we have some creatures we want to sacrifice as well, just get rid of them as well. Finally, Inventor's Fair. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 3 or more artifacts, you gain 1 life. You can tap it for a colorless, and pay 4, tap, sacrifice it, search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. Activate it only if you have 3 or more artifacts. So hopefully we have more food than that. And this is an excellent little effect that we just get for free because it's on a land. Like, it's just, there's no risk in putting it in the deck. Finally, it's number 4, it's not number 1. Let's move on to number 4. Inspiring Statuary. 3 mana for an artifact. Non-artifact spells you cast have Improvise, which means your artifacts can help cast those spells. Each artifact you tapped after you've done activating mana abilities pays for 1. Again, another great use for our foods. They're just going to sit there untapped. We're going to tap those suckers and pay for some big spells. We are also, with Inspiring Statuary, it can tap itself, so it does act as a sort of mana rock. Herald of Anguish is a fantastic card. 7 mana for a creature demon with Improvise. and flying, and at the beginning of your end step, each opponent discards a card. And you can pay 2, sacrifice an artifact. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. So another great use for our foods, powering out this big dude that'll just chip down our opponents. Clock of Omens is a 4-mana artifact. Tap 2 untapped artifacts you control, untap target artifact. So if we're playing a lot of big mana rocks, this is a great card. We use our food to just generate some more mana. Finally, Blinkmoth Urn. 5-mana artifact. At the beginning of each player's pre-combat main phase, if Blinkmoth Urn is untapped, that player adds colorless for each artifact they control. So, why is this good? Well, with Improvise, we can tap the Blinkmoth Urn on our turn. So, beginning of our upkeep, we get a ton of mana, or beginning of main phase, we get a ton of mana from all of our foods, and then we improvise to tap it, and so our opponents won't get a load of mana. Really quite a cool interaction there. Brings us on to number 3. Cauldron Familiar. Now, this cat has been banned from Standard, and, well, it's really good here as well. 1 black mana for a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. Sacrifice food, return it from your graveyard to the battlefield. The really cool thing about this is if we have 10 treasures, Cauldron Familiar in the graveyard, and some kind of sacrifice outlet, we can bring it back by sacrificing a food, sacrifice it, comes in 10 times. At the end of our turn, our commander will have seen 10 different creatures enter the battlefield and create 10 more food tokens. So we can do it all over again. That's potentially 20 damage just from one little kitty catty, which is pretty good. The rest of these are all the food cards from Throne of Eldraine. There's some really good stuff in here. Savvy Hunter, 3 mana for a 3/3. When it attacks or blocks, create a food. But the main thing we want to talk about, sacrifice 2 foods, draw a card. Excellent bit of advantage and a great little dude. Gilded Goose, 1 mana for a flying 0/2. When it enters the battlefield, create a food. You can pay 2 and tap it, create a food. Tap, sacrifice a food. Add 1 mana of any colour. So, good use for our food, nice bit of ramp. And if we run out of food for some reason, we can start generating a few more. Trailer Crumbs, 2 mana enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, create a food. Food. Whenever you sacrifice food, that is specifically, it doesn't matter how you sacrifice it. You don't have to sacrifice it for the life gain. If you're sacrificing it to reprocess something like that, you can pay this 1. Pay the 1. If you do, look at the top 2 cards of your library. You may reveal a permanent card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Then, Gluttonous Troll. 4 mana for a 4/4, I think it is. Trample. When it enters the battlefield, create a number of food tokens equal to the number of opponents you have. So it's generally going to be 3. Then, pay 2, sacrifice another non-land permanent. Gluttonous Troll gets +2/+2 until end of turn. He's a hungry boy and he lives under a bridge. Feasting Troll King, 6 mana for a 7/6 with Vigilance and Trample. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, create 3 food tokens. Then you can sacrifice 3 food tokens, return Feasting Troll King from the graveyard to the battlefield. Activate it only during your turn. So another great sort of loop that we can end up having with maybe if we have a couple of pingers on the field, which might come up later. Finally, this isn't really it's not really anything to do with food, but I couldn't find another place to put it. Hirobi, Death's Wail, 4 mana 4/4 with flying. Whenever a creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, destroy that creature. Why is this in this deck? Well, our commander's ability, the pay 1, to sacrifice and tap indestructible, well, it targets. So, with Hirobi the Death's Wail, we can pay 1, just kill anything on the board. Really quite cool. But your opponents can also target your things and kill them. So, yin and yang, innit? Which brings me on to number 2. Marionette Master. We're going to have a lot of artifacts leaving the field, so Marionette Master is incredibly powerful. 6 mana gets you a 1/3. But wait, there's more. Fabricate 3. When this creature enters the battlefield, put 3 1/1 counters onto it. Or create 3 1/1 color servo artifact creature tokens. Whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette Master's power. So, it can either be a 4/6 4/6. Or it could be a 1/3 with a bunch of artifacts. So if it's a 4/6, every time one of our foods gets sacrificed, we're going to deal 4 to an opponent. Incredibly powerful and can really end games. Scrap Trawler is, these are all cards that whenever an artifact leaves, something happens. Scrap Trawler isn't that good with the food tokens, but you could base your deck around artifacts and then this becomes very powerful. 3 mana for a 3/2. When it or another artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return to your hand target artifact card in your graveyard with lesser converted mana cost. So with the food tokens, they have a converted mana cost of 0. If you can find CMC lower than 0, please do tell me. I will be astonished. Disciple of the Vault is a 1 mana 1/1. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may have target opponent lose 1 life. Again, we're just going to ping our opponents. Pew, 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 pew. Finally, Ikteki Salvage Splicer is a pretty new commander. He's 5 mana for a 1/1. That's a stat line. When it enters, it enters the battlefield, creates a 3/3 colorless golem creature token, and whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on Ikteki and a 1/1 counter on each golem you control. So, as you've always wanted to, you've created a golem tribal deck, and now this could pump all of them massively because we're sacrificing all of our foods. Which brings me on to number 1. And at number 1, it's Heartless Summoning. A 2 mana enchantment. Creature spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. Creatures you control get -1/-1. And the artwork here is just sublime. Look at those horrible, horrible wretches. Lovely. But why are we playing this card? Well, Mere Retriever is a 2 mana 1/1 artifact that when it dies, return another target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Then we've also got Junk Driver. Adam Driver, Piver. It's a 3 mana 1/1 with flying. When it dies, return another artifact from your graveyard to your hand. So, if we've got Heartless Summoning on the field, everything costs 2 less. So Mere Retriever costs 0, Junk Diver costs 1. If we've got something like Cloud Key, which can reduce the cost of creatures or artifacts, both of these creatures will cost 0. And they'll also be 0/0s, because they're both 1/1s base. So, when they enter the battlefield, it'll die, trigger, target the other one, that'll re-returns, you cast that, and then you just keep looping them over and over and over and over and over and over again. Which means, at the end of our turn, our commander will create an absolute metric ton of food tokens, or, if you've got Marionette Master on the field, or effect like that, what's it called? Disciple of the Vault does not work, because it's a 1/1, so it'll die to Heartless Summoning. But you get the point. If you're going to effect like that, you'll just end up killing your opponents. And it's just a great way to generate a bunch of food. Another couple of ways to sort of make things cheaper. Umari Collector, a 4 mana 4/5. We can't play it as companion, or if you want to try and do that, be my guest. I think that'd be a fascinating deck, but I don't think it's particularly viable with this. Spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. So you choose artifact or creature. That's going to be the reduction we want. Finally, Ezra Root Channeler is a 6 mana 4/6 with reach. Creature spells you cast cost X less to cast, where X is the amount of life you've gained this turn. And you can tap him to gain 2 life. Now this is a really cool card because our foods, their intended purpose is to sacrifice them to get some life. So, if we sacrifice food, gain 3 life, all of our creatures cost 3 less, which means that both Mere Retriever and the Junk Diver will be free that turn. So, with a sacrifice outlet, we can just chain them all together. Finally, Workshop Assistant is a 3 mana 1/2 that when it dies, return another target artifact card from your graveyard to hand. Another bit of redundancy, but it doesn't work with Heartless Summonings because it's a 1/2. So it'll just come in as a 0/1. And those are my top 5 cards for this brand new commander. He's a hungry hippo, or troll. And he's really quite cool. There's some really interesting things you can do with him. Thank you very much for watching. If you've got any suggestions, I'd love to hear them. And there was someone, Adventure Game 15, I think it was, who asked about this commander, so I hope you like my recommendations. Please subscribe, and I'll see you soon.